question for you. When was the last time you set a goal? I can tell you the answer for that. Well, for me, it was deciding on my next adventure challenge. Just in case you haven't heard, I'm stand-up paddleboarding from the Bahamas to Florida in June 2022. Yeah, 80 miles, seas infested with sharks. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Now, the reason for asking is I want to talk to you about setting smart goals and why it is pointless. Yes, you heard me correctly, and I want to tell you why it's a good thing not to set smart goals, and it probably goes against the grain of what you've heard before. You might be sitting there thinking, Brendan, you're talking nonsense. Well, if that's the case, then why don't we get stuck in? Because you're probably familiar with the concept of SMART goals. SMART is an acronym for ideas, tactics, or methods that are developed to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. It's normal for organisations to use SMART goals for predominantly two reasons. Firstly, each aspect identified in the acronym clearly shows the anticipated result, which is also defined for employees and organisations. Secondly, it sets a timeline for overcoming procrastination and motivates employees to stay on track. I think it's easy to see why we would expect SMART goals to work best, because they set out the well-defined target assumed to be under a steady state situation. But there is a huge assumption in this though. It assumes that you could see the target as realistic and that the progress is within your control. With that in mind, they are great for providing short-term direction and planning progress towards a long-term goal. But when should you abandon them? I firmly believe it is dangerous to apply SMART goals to every pursuit. The one-size-fits-all approach just doesn't work. For people who are shooting for big dreams, now I can identify with that venture into new or unknown territories or truly want to achieve greatness, SMART goals are often inadequate and sometimes detrimental. So bearing all this in mind, and to help you avoid mistakes, it is helpful to know where and why this goal-setting approach will not work. With that in mind, here are my 6 problems inherent to SMART goal setting. Number 1, focus will be too narrow. Fixating on a single SMART goal, it is easy to fall into the trap of seeing it as the only goal. This means you will likely exclude something else or perhaps everything else. The influence of actions on this single goal could affect other aspects which are detrimental to your overall success. It's like looking through a pair of binoculars to give direction on your travels. Yes, it provides a very crystal clear view of the target in the distance, but means you exclude or miss everything around you in your peripheral vision in this instance. Number 2, it is a binary measure of success or failure. SMART goals need to be specific and measurable, yes, so you can objectively evaluate if you have reached that goal or not. It therefore lends itself to managing progress on projects which are in a controllable environment, for example. The problem is that when you apply the same criteria to measure success or failure, it can motivate people in the wrong way. It becomes quite binary, right or wrong. Adding an extra layer of complexity to this when the situation is dynamic or extreme, I believe it can even be dangerous. You see, when success is measured by a SMART goal only, people end up pursuing that goal for narrowly defined success. It feels like a good thing, but what happens when someone fails to reach that goal, for example? Failure can make people's efforts feel meaningless. If not careful, this could escalate into feeling like lives are meaningless, and this is a dangerous self-fulfilling cycle that we desperately want to avoid. The problem is, these people only see losses. They are unable to appreciate what they have. In much the same way the cheesy phrase, shoot for the stars and hit the moon, don't aim for the ceiling and hit the floor, articulates that if you aim big and don't quite get there, you will achieve more than you thought you could. The failure to achieve this big goal could put someone into a bit of a tailspin when they don't get to where they want to be. Number 3 is about short-term results versus long-term successes. Almost every news channel will at some point or another talk about financial performances of companies, whether they have achieved their stock price predictions or missed the target in their quarterly earnings. To you and I, it would be easy to think that stock prices are the only or most prominent metric to measure a business in. The fear and worry of not achieving a share price prediction often forces companies to take extreme measures to achieve that target. If any business leader in this position is honest with themselves, they are probably sacrificing long-term growth or success for short-term gains. This, unfortunately, is not sustainable. The share price scenario happens almost every 90 days for listed companies. So how can anyone really be focused on long-term growth if they are only really worried about hitting short-term targets? The answer is, they can't. I would go as far to say that in reality, such approaches are fatal for businesses. So how can a SMART goal help guide your people, departments and business in the long term if you are only focused on a binary achievement of a short-term goal? Number 4 is the dip and then the all or nothing. A SMART goal can be discouraging both before and after the goal is reached, which, if you think about it for a moment, have you ever heard yourself saying, "I don't have time," when excusing yourself for not doing what you had planned for that day? Time management is one of the most popular applications of SMART goals. When you think about allocating time to a certain task, it's often in terms of all or nothing. The reason is that SMART goals are viewed as complete entities. So when you are unable to do everything as planned, you may become discouraged and give up the entire goal. I think we can all identify with that in some way, shape or form. Going one step further, when a SMART goal is the sole focus of your hard work, it often becomes a negative incentive. This is because when all eyes are solely on that SMART goal, people lose sight of their achievements and the fulfillment of the journey. It's the old, if you do 10 things and 9 go well but 1 goes badly, which one do people generally focus on? Yep, you guessed it, the one that didn't, forgetting how well you did on everything else. Number 5 is about being realistically misled. When you are pursuing realistic and achievable goals, such as your next promotion, next high sales number, next award, you should pause to ask, at what cost? You see, self-driven people have a tendency to overload themselves with too many priorities. Think about it for a second. An item is number 1 for a reason. So if you set too many number 1 priorities, the number becomes meaningless. In fact, this simply can't be possible. Something has to be numbers 2, 3, 4, and so on. This often happens when you look at each goal in isolation. It can be seen as realistic and achievable within a certain time frame, with a tendency to then be too overly ambitious. Your thinking may go along the lines of, I'll figure out a way to fit it in. I bet you £1. You don't. But realistic is a relative term, not an absolute term. It is not just considering, is this goal realistic considering my capability, but also, is this goal realistic considering all my other goals? Pursuing a dream of fulfilling your greater purpose requires a broad vision. It goes well beyond the immediacy of the next SMART goal. I believe that SMART goals can serve as checkpoints in your journey. They are there to keep you on the path towards success. That's why I believe it is more important to measure progress by the growth and learnings you encounter, not just crossing the finish line of the SMART goal you set. Another point to consider is what happens when someone reaches their SMART goal. It might not be a real success. Working towards SMART goals can motivate you along the way, but they can seem like a stop sign that makes you fall short of your full potential. Setting goals that are too easy will not move us to achieve more than a minimum potential. We will miss the opportunity for growth and will never know what might have been achieved if the goal had been more challenging. So what should you do? I believe it's about setting goals which are important to you now. It's about what you want to achieve, give, and or serve to others. That's why you should set goals that are unbounded by the past. Don't predetermine a limited success by what you have done before. This is why it's so important to set goals, but not SMART ones. No, don't set SMART goals. Please don't do that. Instead, set dumb, extraordinary goals. Set goals that seem ridiculous. Why not shoot for the stars? The likes of Gary Vee and Grant Cardone will say, why can't you achieve your 10-year goals in 6 months? This is an intimidating question if you're not ready for it. Setting big, hairy, audacious goals is the way to really achieve success. By driving yourself to set SMART goals, you are basically setting a to-do list. This is not a lifestyle. Do you want to be bound by SMART goals your whole life? Nah. Life is full of new opportunities. The opportunity to learn new skills, experience new things, or change your life. That's why it's important to set goals that are important to you. These need to be boundary-less goals. We are constrained in so many ways that we've become pre-programmed to avoid risk. By setting SMART goals which limit the chance of failure, you are taking it easy. Yes, you may achieve this goal, but is it really fulfilling or moving you towards your end game? Go for the goals that are not bounded by where you have been. Be bold. You will never make a dent in the universe if every goal has to be achievable and realistic. Think about it. The iPod, the Xbox, Amazon Kindle, Google, the Human Genome Project, etc. were all created with some incredibly big and difficult goals in mind. The overwhelming majority of human beings have the potential to achieve that same kind of greatness. They just need some gutsy, challenging goals to help them get there. And that's it. If you liked this video, please do check out this one here where I talk about the 6 vital life lessons I learned from running a marathon up a mountain. It was about 14,000 feet, so really bloody high. I think you'll find it really useful. But with that, have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.